shortcut is Control tilde. And first thing we want to do is actually initialize our project. So to do that, we will type go mod init I don't know what just happened. Go mod init, and then whatever the name of the project is. So in our case, I'm not typing this all over again. I'm just gonna paste that like that. Actually, tell you what. Let's say github.com/m6io because that's me, and you can do whatever. Like
go mod init.
you want to name yours, and then web developer you can see your. So that's our first. We're directing at the end. Oh, I'm going to start doing this in my tutorials actually just for the sake of like the educational bit. So if you're inside of a directory, you can basically say touch, which will create a file and it'll say main.go. So this created main.go for us. You can also like just create the file the hard way with like your mouse, but if you don't feel like, if you feel like just staying in the terminal and just doing things with the commands, this is the way to do it. So now we have our main.go. Let's go ahead and make our first program. So we'll say, first thing we got to do is declare the name of the package. So our package is called main. And then what we want to do is we'll import the FMT package. So we'll say import FMT, oops, in quotes, FMT. And down here, we'll define our function. So we'll say func main, and inside of the function body, we will just print hello world, or sorry, var router tripping. We don't need to say go run, we just do that. And yeah, so you can either say go run. Let's go. What to do is import the mux package, github.com/gorilla/mux. Okay, and this will add the Gorilla package to your project, and you can actually see that in your Go mod. So you'll see this got added over here. It is going to highlight it because it's not being used. Once we start using it, though, this should go away. So now that we have this, we can go ahead and import it. So parentheses, I have to actually, but this is just for the sake of practice. So we'll say github.com/gorilla/mux. There we go. Now, which is that come into our server and run different logic depending on what specific route is called. So to define a router, we're going to say router, and then we're going to use the shorthand definition. So this shorthand definition is the same thing as us saying router, or sorry, var router mux.router. So instead of us doing this and then saying router, so now we can define everything and we'll just like kind of write less lines of code. So once we define our router, we'll go ahead and define our first route handler function. So we'll say, or route handler, which will take in a route handler function. So we'll say router.handle is in JSON format. So we'll say w.header. Well, it doesn't allow us to. It just informs the whoever's making the response that this is the type, the content type of the response. So we'll say content type application/JSON. And we are getting a little bit of screaming action over here because we haven't imported HTTP. So there we go. Import this from the standard library. And then we're going to need to encode our response and send it back. But before we
handle func. the func render content.
Before we can do that, we actually have to define the structure for our response. So up top, we will define a type, route response. This is going to be a struct, and this is just to structure the JSON response. And it's only going to take in, for now, it's only going to take in a message field. This is going to be of type string, and we're going to annotate this field with with a JSON tag. And this basically is to be used when you're encoding or decoding to and from JSON. It just like allows whatever package is actually handling this field to know what the corresponding JSON property is. So in this case, it's going to be message, right? So this is what the actual property in the JSON is going to look like, but this is how we're going to access it in the Go program. So now down here inside of our handle func, we're going to say JSON dot new encoder. Inside here, we'll pass in our response writer, and then we'll encode the route response. Well, here what we're saying is using the route response struct, we will pass the message hello world, like so. And I do need to import the JSON package. There we go. And we will call this, or this this route handler will be called using the get request, like so. And I'm getting an error over here. Oh, it's supposed to be methods. I'm silly. Sorry. So once we have this, we can go ahead and start up our server. So this is basically defining our route handlers. So what to do based on what endpoint is accessed given what method. And we need to actually start our server and pass our router to it so that our server knows what to do with it. So we'll say log.fatal. And here, we don't need a double line this actually. And here we'll say http.listen and serve. We are going to set our HTTP port to 5000. And you can set this to whatever you want. I like 5000. And we will pass in the router. And what log.fatal is going to do, if I imported it, is it's just going to log whatever errors occur if this fails. So this is going to run, and in the event that it fails, it will end the program and log the failure. Okay? So now we can go ahead and give this a whirl and see what happens. So we'll open up our terminal again using Control tilde, and we will say go build, and then we will say go run main.go, even though I didn't actually have to run go build, but it is what it is. So now we have hello world running. It's asking, oh my god, I cannot speak. It's asking to access whatever. So we'll say allow, cool. And then I can use the Postman software, but I figured since we're already in VS Code and I don't feel like alt tabbing every 5 seconds, we can actually just install the extension if you don't have it. So you can head to your extensions, you can install this, and in here we can just create a new HTTP request. This will be running, or we will make the request to http / local host 5000. It's going to be a GET request. We hit enter, and I need to minimize my terminal. There we go. And in here you'll see message hello world. Now before we start moving on to the next part, I do need to correct an issue. Here you'll see we're having a warning that says struct field JSON message is not compatible with reflect struct tag.get. So basically bad syntax, and that's because I forgot to put this in double quotes. So now that I save that, it'll actually it'll handle this this request correctly, or sorry, the response correctly. So, and yes, I do want to allow this, and in here like that. And in here, if I run this request again, you'll see that it actually formatted the JSON correctly because I told it that the message is equivalent to a lowercase message. So now it responded correctly. So yeah, that's, geez, I really wish I could I don't like this Postman VS Code extension. It's kind of cluttered. We'll figure it out. We'll find our flow at some point. So yeah, so now that we got that fixed, let's just add some, actually, you know what? Before we start adding some extra stuff, let's add a new package that will save us so much time, because you notice that every time you do something, you have to go and exit your server, and then you have to run it again, and yada yada yada. And we don't want to do that. That's just that's a little bit too much. What we want to use instead is a package called air. So you can head to, it's just github.com/cosmtrek/air, and what you'll do is head down to where, there you go install. So I believe I already have this installed, but I'm going to do it anyways. So we'll say go install. This, and this is going to install air, and what air does is allow us to have hot reloading. So that means is every time you save your file, it'll automatically rebuild the project, so that you don't have to keep stopping and starting your server. It'll handle all that for you. And geez, this is taking forever. I'm not sure why, but while that runs, I am going to grab something else. There's a setup piece over here somewhere. Yeah, there we go. So we're gonna grab the air init because we're not gonna be doing a lot of customization. We just want to use the basic default settings. So now we have air installed, and what go install does compared to go get is this installs it in your actual your global Go settings. So this gives you air access to more permissions, and this isn't well, I don't know if it's more permissions. Sorry, I'm having trouble with my words today. But this isn't something that we're going to use in production. This is just a development tool. So in production, you're going to run it. You're just going to build your binaries and just run them once, and as many times as you need to restart them. But that's a different over and over again. We can just come in here and we can type air, and there you go, runway.go and go build and all that kind of stuff. We can just come in here and we can type air, and there you go. It is now building our program, and it says hello world. We're going to allow it. And if we go back to Postman, Control Enter to send it again, there you go. And just so that I can show you what it looks like when you make changes, I'm going to comment this out for a second. And now it's not going to say hello world. And I'm going to come over here and say, hello, you cool person. Like, comment, and subscribe. Okay, save that. And then we come over here and we hit Control Enter again. It is still building. There we go. Hello, you cool hello, you cool person. Like, comment, and subscribe, and make sure to do that. It's always helpful. Now that we got this set up, we don't have to keep opening and closing our terminal over and over again unless we have errors. But for the convenience, I am going to add some different logging, and I'm going to get rid of FMT because one less line to get rid of the FMT package. So we'll say log, and then instead of hello world, we'll say starting server, right? And I guess down here we'll say log.print, and in here we'll say setting up routes. Cool. Did I spell this wrong? I did. And then I think down here we can just say log.println listening to, or listening on port 5000, like so. So now when it rebuilds, you'll see that saying running, and it says starting server, setting up routes, listening on port 5000. So every time you save and you just want to confirm that everything went well, hopefully you'll see these messages in your terminal. But because we don't need our terminal, since we don't need to keep starting and stopping and starting our program, we can just hide that, Control tilde, And since we're only going to be using this file for now, we can just hide this with Control B. Now let's go ahead and start setting up our routes for this project. I like to have a good idea of what my API is going to be doing throughout or before I actually start writing it. And it's like you don't have to have that much foresight, but it's good to have like at least an idea, like a roadmap of where you're going. So we're gonna have, I guess, this project is gonna have, let's see, authentication, authorization, and just like full CRUD or authorized CRUD. We don't need individual handlers for authorization, but we do need them for authentication. So we'll say our first handler is going to be register. Our second one is going to be the login. So register is going to, this is going to create users. Login is going to authenticate users. So it's going to just like make sure the credentials match. And then we're going to have our project handlers. So we'll say create project. It's going to be the first one. Then we'll do update project. Okay, I don't know why my VS Code decided to do that. It's this weird thing when I scroll, it like selects multiple lines for some reason. So the next one is update project. And I know I'm not going in order of CRUD, but there's a reason I'm doing create and update. It'll make sense in a little bit. So the next one is get projects, plural. There we go. The one after that is get project. And then the last one is delete project. Cool. So how we're going to define these is actually pretty simple. I'm just going to grab this func right here. We'll say all the way up until this blue closing bracket, and we'll just hit Control X, and we'll fix this in a second. So down here, under register, we will say, let's add a space between the parentheses. We'll say in the func, and we'll say this is func register. So this is our register function. And in here, yeah, we do want application/JSON, and rather than saying all this, have you done this? Have you like comment and subscribed? We'll say hello from register. Yeah, cool. So now I'm just gonna grab this, and because I'm lazy, I'm just gonna highlight these double slashes, Control D as many times as we have functions, hit left, hit down, hit enter, paste, the whole shebang, and then we'll just, yeah, we'll have to rename these. So the short way of me doing that is, again, highlight the slashes, hit Control D as many times as I want to, and then we're gonna do Shift End so that we can select this, Control C, and then I'm going to highlight func register under login, actually, like so, and Control D again until we get to the last one. Right arrow, Control backspace, Control V, and cool. I like shortcuts, and I think you should too. You probably, if you've seen my videos by now, you know I'm a fan of these shortcuts. They help speed up development, is what I like to tell myself. Who knows? Maybe I'm actually wasting my time. So last thing we want to do is, well, we already have all the different the different names of the functions in our clipboard. So I am just going to highlight the from register within the login route, hit Control D until we get down to the delete, and then write Control C. So /, register, and this is actually not going to be a get request. It's going to be a post request. Cool. And right next to the register, we will pass in the, geez, bro. There we go. We'll pass in the register function. So you see we're getting a little bit of a screaming action because we're not actually using any of these down here. So we'll fix that real quick. Just you can click anywhere in this line and just hit Shift-Alt-D a few times, like that. Maybe one more. And then we'll say, I'm just going to highlight all these funcs down to the delete, right, control shift, or control shift right, control C, go back up here. I don't remember how many that was. That was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Cool. So we just need to make sure there's 6 of these. There are 8 of these. Get rid of 1. Cool. So now we can come over here and we'll just control D. Wait, what? Okay, now it says there's 6. Bro, I can't count today. There we go. I don't know, or no, it said there was 8 a second ago. We're tripping, my man. So now we come down here like that. We're actually going to be slash, and this is not going to be a post request. It's going to be a put request. Put. There we go. Yeah. So the next one is the get projects. So this is going to be this is also going to be just projects, like the whole thing, because we're getting all of them. And it's going to be a get request. And then we're going to have get project. This is going to be project/ID, because we're getting a specific project. This is also going to be a get request. And the last one is going to be project/ID again, because we're deleting a specific project. And this is going to be delete. So we have register as post, login as post, create project, that's post, update project, that's put, get projects, get project or get, and then delete project is delete. So we can save that. Then we can head back to Postman. And if we hit Control Enter, it'll say 404 page not found, because we don't have a route defined at the root path anymore. So we have to come up here and we have to say projects, enter, hello from get projects, because this is a get request. Now, let's say, let's actually, I'm going to like duplicate this down. Is there not a duplicate option? Maybe I have to save it. Oh, geez. We'll, okay. Web developer API. Cool. Did I literally not just create one? Okay. You know what? There. Cool. So we'll save this in here. Did I not? Bro, what is going on? Okay. We'll just say this is get all projects. Save that. And we'll just duplicate this down a few times. So there we go. This one's actually going to be get project by ID, like that. And this one is going to be project slash, we'll just say 1. And if we hit enter, it's going to say hello from get project, because it has an ID. The next one, we're going to duplicate this again. And we're going to say, this one is going to be update project by ID, like that. And because this is going to be a update, we're going to be using the put request. So now we hit enter, hello from update project. If I get rid of the ID, it's going to scream method not allowed, because we don't have a put request defined for the projects route. It's defined for the one with the ID. So if we hit enter without an ID, it's going to say page not found, because it's expecting there to be something. But if we do 1, there we go, we supplied it with an ID. If we add a slash and we do some nonsense, it'll scream and say page not found, because it's only expecting 1 parameter. Cool. So, so that's update, and this is a put request. So let's go ahead and duplicate this again, and we'll say, geez, I meant to hit rename. So we'll rename this, we'll rename this to delete project by ID, like so. And this is going to be a delete request, like so. We hit enter, hello from delete project, cool. And so forth and so on. So I'm just going to speed through the rest of these. So we have our get all, get 1, update 1, delete 1. Was there anyone else? I think that was it, right? Oh, create 1, create project. Cool. post request. Yeah. And then we'll do another one. We'll call it user login. And this is going to be at the route login. Hello from login. We want to be able to also parse our IDs from the routes that have IDs in the path, such as the update project, get project, and delete project. So in our route response, we'll add a new field. We'll call it ID. It's going to be a type string, and we'll say JSON. The JSON indentation is going to be ID, and we're going to omit it if it's empty because, because there's going to be some of these routes that don't have an ID. So this is basically going to tell it that it's fine if it's null. So we'll say omit empty, save that, and then let's go ahead and update the routes and show how to parse out the ID from the routes. So we'll say an update project to parse out the route, to parse out the parameter from the route. We'll say vars, and we'll set this to mux dot vars and pass in the HTTP request, and then we will define ID to. Oh, bro, I'm doing this on the wrong route. Sorry. Let me cut this. It's still valid. We just need to do it in update like that. Let me just zoom it a little bit and hide my sidebar. There we go. So this one is going to be like that. And we'll say ID equals to vars ID like so. So this is just reading out the ID from the variables that are in the request URL. And in our response, we will send back the ID like this. So we'll say right next to hello from update project, we'll say ID is ID. Cool. So I'm just gonna copy this down to get project and to delete project. Like, oh, that's weird. Okay, it doesn't really usually do that. So we'll just do it like this. Cool. And then we'll use them in the response like this. And there we go. So we'll save that. And then we'll head back to Postman. And just to confirm that that worked, we go to update project. We hit Control Enter, ID 1, we put a 10, ID 10, we put all this, there's the ID, and just gonna copy that, go to delete project, just make sure that this persisted like that, cool, and then get project by ID, we'll add that there, cool, awesome. So yeah, so now we're able to actually parse out the request parameters. Before we start moving on into all the fun stuff with regards to like CRUD to the database, I do want to first set up our middleware chaining. So middleware is basically stuff that runs in between the process of you, or the stage of you getting a request and acting against that request. So basically all the stuff that you want to run in the middle of this, hence the name middleware. So we're going to create a basic middleware that is just for logging purposes. So we'll call it func logging middleware. It's going to take in the next HTTP request. So basically, it's going to take in whatever is supposed to happen next so that it can actually go to this after it's done running. So I'll say next http.handler, and it's going to return an http.handler. All right, handler. And basically what this is saying is it's gonna take in the thing that it's going to be going to next. It's gonna run whatever it needs to run inside, and then it's gonna return the handler that it took in, so that it's basically saying, okay, I'm gonna do my thing, and then I'm gonna pass everything on to the next one. So take one, pass to the next guy, kind of thing. So what we're gonna do directly inside of the middleware, because it's middleware, it's just running and returning something. So we're just immediately going to return an http.handler func. So a handler function, and we're going to set this as an anonymous function. We're going to say func. It's going to take in. There we go. Wait, come on now. Okay, I thought I would get some shorthand help, but I guess not. So I'm just going to copy this because that's basically what it's taking in. and we're going to paste that there like so. All right, we're going to open up curly brace, and inside we're actually going to run some logic. So we'll say log.printf, and in here we're going to use some string templating. I think that's what it's called. So to do that, we're going to say parentheses s. I'm going to do this 3 times, and basically what this means is we're defining a little placeholder that we will then inject some string content into. And then at the end of this, we'll add a new line like that. And the stuff that we're going to pass into here is the request. So in this case, we're going to say remote address. So that is the so that's just going to say like what the actual address is. So remote address. Hello. There we go. That was annoying. We're going to say the method, and we're going to say the URL like that. So these are going to be parsed out of the request and are going to be injected into these 3 placeholders. And then we're going to run next.serve HTTP write read. I don't know why I doubled up on the parentheses. There we go. Why is it screaming? Oh my God, it's because I'm illiterate handler. There we go. Cool. So save that. And now let's actually use it. So we're going to use a package called Alice for middleware chaining, because middleware chaining using the standard library sucks to write. Really, honestly. So we're going to say go get github.com/justinas/Alice. I love this package so much. So run air again so that we have our server running. Hide that. And let's actually set up Alice. So the way we do that is actually fairly simple. We're basically going to, so the way it's going to work is we're going to say alice.new, and we're going to pass in the actual middleware chain in here. In this case, we just have 1, which is the logging middleware, if I could spell, like that. And then we're going to say dot then func1, which is the logging middleware, if I could spell, like that. And then we're going to say dot then func, and then the actual handler function. So quote commas, because I'm lazy. Hit Control D a bunch of times. We're going to say go get github.com/justinas/Alice. I love this package so much. So run air again so that we have our server running. Hide that. And let's actually set up Alice. So the way we do that is actually fairly simple. We're basically actually set up Alice. So the way again, so we have our server running like that. I don't know why I doubled up on the, there we go. Cool. So save that. And now let's actually use it. So we're going to use a package called Alice for middleware chaining, because middleware chaining using the standard. So the way we do that is actually fairly simple. We're basically going to, so the way it's going to work is we're going to say alice.new, and we're going to pass in the actual middleware chain in here. In this case, we just have 1, which is the logging middleware, if I could spell, like that. And then we're going to say dot then func, and then the actual handler function. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to cut this, and I'm going to go to all of these like quote commas, because I'm lazy. Hit Control D a bunch of times, paste that there, and then I'm going to hit Control right, and then close the parentheses I just opened, and I'm going to get rid of that open parenthesis, and I'm just going to make sure to import Alice, and we are getting screamed at. Why are we getting screamed at? Cannot use. Is that right? Why can't we use it? Oh my gosh. Okay, sorry, I forgot this. So we have to get rid of the handle func, because this is basically getting run by Alice now. So we'll just say handle, and that'll work. And this is really hard. hard to read. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to control like that, just hit enter. That way it's easier to read. Cool. So yeah, so now if we actually run one of these, I'm going to open up my my terminal, head to update project and hit enter, and you're going to see it's going to say what the address is, and then what the request was, and then where the URL was, right? The same thing with delete, right? Same thing with get all, and then same thing with whatever that one was, get project, all right? And there you go. So now we have some middleware chaining, and we're going to put this to good use. The next step is going to require us to create a database, or a Zeta database, excuse me. So you can create a free account on Zeta. You can create it with your GitHub account or whatever. It's up to you. But note that when you create your account, you'll be given a Zeta key that you need to save. It's basically your access key. And I'm not going to show you mine, but hold on to it. And we're going to be putting it in our environment variables. Yeah. We're going to be using it in our environment variables. But once you get that, like once you get your account created and your Zeta access key saved, let's go ahead and create a database. So in here, I'm going to name this database. What did we say it was called? Web developer. I cannot spell. Developer. God, that took too long. Developer projects API. And we'll just call it developer projects. Cool. And we're gonna need to use the beta access to Postgres. So this, I believe, you need to set it in your account settings. So if this doesn't show up, you're gonna need to go to your account settings first and make sure that it's set up. It's pretty straightforward. Yeah. So once you have this, we're gonna go ahead and hit next, and there you go. So that's my Postgres endpoint. I'm not worried about you taking it because this is a temporary account. But yeah, so you're gonna want to use your own, but the access key that you're gonna need, or the API key, that's what I was looking for. It's gonna be stored in here. So I need to get to this. There we go. Cool. So once you have that copied, let's go ahead, continue, select platform. I don't care about all this. Okay, so let's head into web developer projects. And what we're gonna do first is create two tables, one for our users for authentication and authorization, and the other one for our projects. Now we're not gonna do it from the UI, and the reason is there's a few nuances about Postgres specific options. So we're gonna create it using their REST endpoint and the yeah, so they have a way to do it. So we're gonna head to Postman, and I am gonna provide you with a Postman config that you can import, and it'll give you access to some of these endpoints that we're about to call. So if you head, I'm also gonna give you access to I'm gonna give you the environments for you to put your access key and your Postgres URL into. So okay, so the URL is actually not going to be the same one that we just copied. So this Postgres endpoint, this is going to be used by our application, but what we're going to be using is this one, the HTTP endpoint. So we're going to need to copy this, and you're going to need to head into Postman and just update this value. So the Postgres URL value. And I'm not going to show you what my API key is, but you're going to update it over here. Just paste it in once you get it. I already have mine set up, so I should be good to go. So once you have that, you can just hit Control S to save that, and then head to your collections. And in the collections, you'll see there's a Zeta setup that I already have for y'all. So the first one we want to create is the projects. And it's basically just got a SQL create statement. You can freestyle and do this your own way if you want, but save yourself some time. So we're just gonna go ahead and hit send, and there we go. We got a code. Code 200. So we're just going to check in the database. You see there is the projects table, and we need to adapt this because there's some things that need to be added for it to be compatible with Zeta, specifically the Zeta ID and stuff. So we'll go ahead and adapt table, and it's not going to destroy anything that we added, so we're good. There we go. So next one is the users table. So same deal. It has a little create statement. We're just going to enter or send, and there we go. We have our users. Same deal with this one. We're going to adapt the table, and the last thing we want to do actually is we want to head to our schema area, and you can do this in the table itself. You don't have to do this the way I'm doing it, but basically we want to link the user table to the project table. And how we're going to do that is we're going to come down here, we're going to say add a column, and we're going to, this is the project, right? Yeah. And we're going to add a link to add a column, and we're going to user table to the project table. And how we're going to do that is we're going to come down here, we're going to say add a column, and we're going to, this is the project, right? Yeah. and we're going to add a link to table. We're going to call this table user, and we're going to link from users. And when I guess when it's deleted, like if the user's deleted, we can just like set the user to null. You can cascade delete if you want, and what this means is if the user's deleted, it'll delete all the projects associated with the user as well. But that's a more advanced use case, and we're not even covering the deletion of users in this tutorial. So do with it how you will, or do with that information what you will. But that's yeah. So now let's go ahead. We create that column, and this one you can't do it from the SQL, unfortunately. Like you can't use the foreign key. Well, you can, I think. Let's go ahead. We create that column, and this one you can't do it from the SQL, unfortunately. Like you can't use the foreign key. Well, you can, I think. It's in the doc, but it doesn't work. So this is the way I figured out how to do it. So now we have our projects and our users, so we can go ahead and get started with, creating users. So back in VS Code, and I don't think I'm going to use the Postman extension anymore because I'm trying to like zoom in on the screen because I've gotten feedback that's like folks are not able to read what's on the screen when I'm like using it the way it's legible for. Like this is how I write code, and like you can't read that. So this is a little bit more legible, and like the Postman is just like obnoxious, like how like big everything is and it's hard to navigate. So I'm just going to switch back and forth to the actual app, but you can still use this. It's the same exact UX. It's just annoying for me to have it in here. So let's say so the first thing we want to do is we want to create our environment. Unfortunately, like you can't use the foreign key. Well, you can, I think. It's in the doc, but it doesn't work. So this is the way I figured out how to do it. So now we have our projects and our users, so we can go ahead and this file and this folder, they shouldn't be committed. So if you like, I haven't set up Git for this repository, but like an example is, let's say init. So what I would do first and foremost is I would create a git ignore. So I'd say .git ignore because you do not want to be committing your environment variables and your build to Git, because that doesn't make any sense. So where is it? We'll just add this to git ignore, and we'll add the temporary folder to git ignore, and there you go. Oh, and then I guess we can delete this because we don't want, well, before we delete that, yeah, we'll go ahead and delete that because we don't need it. And I think that's it. Yeah, everything else we do want. So we'll just save the git ignore, close that. And then inside of your environment variables file, you want to add two environment variables. They are the Zeta PostgreSQL, and this we're going to get it from the Zeta website, the one that you just made, which I conveniently cannot find. There it is. So we head to your settings and then grab this. Now, keep in mind, you need your API key. So you're going to want to put this in the environment variable. And of course, as usual, I'm not going to show you mine, just for security reasons. And head back to your environment variables, paste that there, and then update this. Remember, like, make sure you get the carets in here, because sometimes people will only put their API key inside the caret, and then they'll be like screaming why it doesn't work. Make sure the entire thing, including the caret, to replace it with your API key. And then we also want to add a, this is just for me not to have to go back and forth, but we're going to add a JSON Web Token secret because we're going to be using JSON Web Token. And you can call this whatever you want. For the sake of the memes, I'm just going to use secret because that's so secretive. So yeah, go ahead and update your API key. And once you have that done, you can close your environment variable file, and we are basically good to go ahead and get started. So first thing we want to do, we want to install two new packages. So we're going to say go get github.com/joho/go.env, and that's going to allow us to read from our environment variables file. And then we're going to say go get github.com/lib/pq, and this is going to allow us to use Postgres. Now that you have those, let's right above this print line starting server, let's go ahead and import in our environment variables. So we will define an error to hold the errors in the case that the go.environment.load function fails. So what this means is if you run this and it fails, error will store this error. Okay? If there's an error, meaning if error is not nil, so this means if there's an error, then log.fatalf error loading.env file. Cool. After that, let's connect to Postgres. So we'll say con string or connection string if you want, but we're going to be short. So we'll say con string is equal to OS, so import the OS package, dot get environment variable. In here, we're going to pass in the name of the environment variable. So we call that Zeta Postgres URL. And then we're going to say if the length of the connection string is 0, meaning if there is no connection string, then log fatal f Zeta PostgreSQL environment variable is not set. Save that, and let's just check our logs. Yeah, I think everything's good. So the next part is we're going to actually open a connection to our database. So we're going to say we're going to set the DB variable as well as the error. So if we successfully connect, it's going to store it in the database variable. Otherwise, it's going to store an error in the error variable. SQL, so we need to import the standard library SQL package, .open, Postgres, and the connection string. Okay, so the first one is the actual the driver for the SQL driver, excuse me, and then the connection string that we successfully got. And then we're going to do some error handling. So if error is not nil, log fatal error. So just log the error, and then we're going to add a defer db dot close. And this just means that defer the closing of the database connection to when the program exits. All right. So now, if we hit Control tilde and we save again, unknown driver Postgres, that's cool. And the reason it's giving us that error is because we're supposed to import Postgres. Now, because Golang requires you to use all imports, if we try to just say github.com/lib/pq, it's going to say that we're not actually using this. Wait, what? Oh, imported and not used. Sorry. So we're going to need to import it anonymously, like this. And what this means is we're telling Go that we're not going to use it explicitly, but we actually are using it because we need it in order to connect to the database using the SQL package. So we save, and now you'll see the error goes away, and it should say, there we go. And now we are connected to Postgres. Oh, and there is one more thing that we need to do. So we need to store our connection in a app level struct. And the reason we're going to do that is because we're going to have all of our functions that require the database connection and later on the JSON Web Token. We want them to be able to access it kind of like state. Because Golang is not object-oriented, there are no classes, so you need to have state defined somewhere. And for us, we're going to do that by creating a struct called app, like that. And this is going to hold our application state. And for this the sake of this tutorial, or this part of the tutorial, that is basically only going to be the DB value, and it'll be of type SQL.db. And down somewhere over here, yeah, right over here, we're going to actually set the app, or we're going to initialize an app value, and we're going to set it to the type app. So we'll say and app. So we're initializing a new struct, or we're initializing a new app using the app struct. And we're going to set DB to DB. So the DB value of the app struct to the DB that we just created up here. If it helps you to say something like database just for your own sake, like if it helps you distinguish it better that way, that's fine too. But I just want to do it this way to stay consistent. Now it is going to scream at us because it's declared not used. So I'm just going to comment this out for now, but we're going to use it in a second. Let's go ahead and create our user registration route. So initializing a new app, it'll be of type SQL.db, and really set the app, or we're going to initialize an app value, distinguish it better that way. First thing we're going to want to import or get is /x/ crypto, not that kind of crypto, bcrypt. And we're going to be using this to encrypt the user passwords, or to hash the user passwords, so that way you're not storing them in plain text in the database. So once you have that imported, or once you have that getted, we're not going to import it directly from here anymore. We're just going to use VS Code tooling. But before we start using it, let's go ahead and update our structs, because we're going to need one that represents our user credentials. So we'll call it type credentials, and this is a struct. This struct is going to be made up of two fields. The first one is going to be username, and the second one is going to be password. Both of these are going to be type string, and for their JSON annotation, they're going to be, we'll say JSON, username, lowercase, and we're going to omit it if it's empty. All right, so that's that one. And then we'll just copy this down, and we'll just change this to password, like like so. Save that. And then we're also going to add so this route response, this is for like sending back like a message. But in our case, we want to send a user response. So we're just going to duplicate this up by doing Alt-Shift up. And we're going to rename this to user response. In here, we're going to return the Zeta ID. Now, the Zeta ID, this is the ID that's auto-generated by the Zeta database. This is going to be, the JSON annotation is going to be lowercase zeta underscore ID. And the other property is going to be the username. So we're going to return the username in the user response. And for this one, let's get rid of them at empty, and we'll change this to username lowercase, like so. Now, we also want to return we also want to define, an error response struct. And this is going to be a struct that contains the error that's returned in the case that there is an error returned. And this is just so that we can format our errors using JSON instead of returning them as plain text, because it's going to help like clients, like a potential UI, to parse the JSON and manage it and use it correctly. So we'll say error response, and this is simply going to take in a message. So we'll just copy the message over, and we will paste it there like so. And I think that's it for our structs. So now let's go ahead and create our, or I guess modify our route handler. So inside of our register handler, let's first change this comment to say register function to handle user registration. And the reason I'm doing this is because Golang, it's self-documenting. So Godoc is like basically like Golang's automatic documentation. So if you hover over this, you'll see register function handle user registration. That's derived from the comment right above the declaration of the function. So it's a good way to just keep your code legible and easy to understand without having to go to the function directly. So what we're going to do in the registration route handler, first thing we want to do is we want to define our creds as type credentials, and we want to decode them from the request body. So we'll say error JSON.new decoder, and we're gonna decode the request body into the credentials struct that we defined up here. So we're gonna say and creds like that. So what this means is read from the body and then decode it and place the result inside of this variable right here. All right. Now we want to handle this error. So we'll say if error does not equal nil, then we are going to need to send back a response. So we'll say w.header. I'm just going to actually grab this from here. So we'll paste that there, right? And then we're going to write the header. So we'll say w.write header, and we're going to add a status code. So in this case, it's going to be http.status bad request. All right. And status bad request is a 400. So means no, not good. And then we want to, right here, just grab this line. And instead of encoding the error, the route response, we're going to encode an error response like that. And the message is going to be invalid request payload. And in order to exit this function, right underneath it, we will say return. And this just means don't complete the execution of the handler, or exit here. All right. Now, let's go ahead and try this out. So if we go back to Postman, and I did supply you with or I will supply you, with a Postman configuration that you can import. If we head into the body and we say, I don't know, like we have username and password, so we send this, and we get as 200, hello from register, because everything passed. But let's say we don't provide a username. It still works. And that's because we don't have any input validation. But let's say that we added like some incorrect JSON, right? And then we hit enter. And invalid request payload. And that's basically the first check to make sure that the JSON is actually formatted correctly and can be understood. So another example is if we do something like that, I wonder if null will do anything. Oh, that will work. Okay, that's fine. Oh, it'll work because I think omit empty worked, but I wonder. Yeah, so this is a number. So so omit empty, which we said that you can provide a basically like an incomplete request body, but because we use a different type, we use a number over here, that made it invalid. So that's good. Now, before we move on, this right here, we're going to be repeating this over and over and over again. Every single time we have an error, we want to handle the error and we want to return it. The problem is, well, this is 3 lines of code that we got to be repeating over and over again, and I don't feel like doing that. So let's define a function to handle that for us. So we'll say func respond with error, and this is going to take in the response writer as well as the HTTP request. So I'll say that. Actually, no, it's not going to take in the response writer. What am I saying? It's going to take in the response writer and the code because we're passing in the status code. This is just going to be an integer, and then it's going to take in the response message, which is just going to be a string like that. Cool. Now, let's just go ahead and copy. We'll copy those. We'll paste them there. But this is going to stay the same. We're always going to return it as JSON. But this needs to take in the code that we're passing to the function. And then in the encode area, we want to pass the message in over here. So we'll just say message. There we go. So now, rather than doing these 3 lines of code over and over again, we can just say respond with error, and then we can pass in the writer. We can say HTTP status byte request, so like that, I think. And then we can pass in the message, which in this case would be invalid request payload, like so. We can get rid of these 3 lines, and now we can use this respond with error everywhere we want as we move forward. And we're going to use it, I think, 2 or 3 more times in this function alone. So let's go ahead and do that. So assuming that the JSON body is fine, then the next thing we want to do is we want to hash the password that was provided in the input. So we'll say hashed password and the error. And we're going to set these to bcrypt dot generate from password. And this is assuming that you imported or that you got bcrypt, you installed the bcrypt package. I'm just going to say installed from now on because that makes sense. And in here, we're going to set this to a slice of bytes. That sounds funny when you say it out loud. So this just means like a dynamically sized array. That's what a slice is in Go. And it's going to be of type byte. So the array elements are going to be bytes, and these are going to be generated from the creds.password. And we're going to pass in the bcrypt cost. So then we'll just use the default cost. So this is just an integer. In this case, it's 10. You can write in an integer, or you can just use like whatever they have. So there's max cost. I don't know what max cost is. The maximum allowable cost. Okay, that makes sense. So default cost, we'll just use that. And why is this giving me an error? This is giving me an error because I spelled cred over here, but I should have spelled it creds from the beginning. So we'll just change that to be creds. There we go. Cool. So assuming if there was an issue with geez, I cannot speak, with the hashing of the password, let's go ahead and return an error. So I'm just going to grab these 4 lines over here. I'm going to paste them down there. And instead of saying bad request, because the request is not bad, right? This is an error on our part. We'll say status internal server error. And in the message, we will say error hashing password. Now, obviously, we don't want to be returning this error to the users, but this is just for our own debugging purposes. You should change this later on to just be like internal server error or something like that. But this is just for the sake of like, getting through the tutorial and getting a good understanding of how error handling works. So next thing we want to do is we want to, assuming that the password hashing worked, we want to define a Zeta ID, which is going to be a type string, and this is going to hold the Zeta ID that is created by the database at the successful creation of the user. So we'll say error equals. Now this is where we have to access this thing up here. So we're going to need to access the app state because we're going to want to use the database connection. So we'll uncomment this line, and then down in the register function, to make this function use the app state, we need to make it a method of the app struct. And to do that, we add these parentheses up top next to the func declaration, and we'll say app star struct app. So this is the type. And now in here, we can access the app struct. And we'll say app.db. So now we can access the DB connection. .query row. So we're going to query, or we're going to send an SQL query. And in here, we'll say insert into, because users is a protected keyword in Postgres, we have to put it in quotes. And because quotes are not things that you can put inside quotes, we're going to have to use escapes. So these 2 are just to tell the language, hey, don't worry, this is not the end of this statement. If I were to get rid of this it would get real funky real fast, right? So we want to use the escapes when we have double quotes inside of double quotes. So we'll say users, and yeah, I know you can come in here and you can use backticks instead, and you don't have to be like really annoying about it, and you can be fancy and all that good stuff. But I don't know. I don't feel like doing that. I just do it this way because it's also like explicit for me, and it's a repeatable pattern, and it's just preference. You know? Do it however it makes sense to you. So we're going to insert into the users table the username and the password, and we're going to get those values from these placeholders. So we'll say $. Where's the $? There it is. $1 and $2, like that. And we're going to returning, there we go, Zeta_ID. So Zeta_ID should get generated at the successful execution of this SQL statement. So insert into, did I spell everything right? Yeah, I think I did. So now we want to actually say what we're passing in to these placeholders. And those are going to be the creds.username and the, oh, no, wait, no, don't pass in the password. We're going to say string hashed password. So string, this is going to require us to import the string package. And it should have already, maybe not. It's from the strings package, I believe. And this is just going to convert the byte, the slice of bytes to a string so that we can save it in the database. And it's going to be hashed. So we're not saving things in plain text. And we're going to scan. So scan is just like we're basically just like taking back the columns and we're plugging them into the, we're plugging whatever things were returned into the variable that we defined, which in this case would be the Zeta ID. So we're going to scan them into Zeta ID, like that. So now let's just catch the error. So we'll copy these 4 lines, we'll paste them there, and we'll say server internal error, that's cool. And then we'll say error creating user, and then we'll save. So we do have an error somewhere, and I think it's because, yeah, so we need to actually use this app here. So see how it's saying undefined register? That's because we said that because of how we defined register, we said that register is a method of the abstract. So to actually use this correctly, let's say app.register, and the error goes away. So the last thing we want to do is in this, we don't want to say hello from register on the response. Rather, we want to say, instead of route response, we want to use the user response that we defined above. And in here, we're going to say Zeta ID is equal to the Zeta ID that we scanned. From the successful execution of the SQL query. And we're going to say the username is, well, I mean, the username was created. Like, we don't have to return the username from the database because, like, we sent the username there. So we can just use the one that we used in the inputs. So we'll say creds.username, save that, head to Postman, and let's go ahead and try this. So we'll say enter. It's going to have an error because we used the wrong type, I think. There we go. So let's say just password, error creating user, and the error is because we didn't include the username. So we need to include the the username, hit enter, error creating user again. Huh. Oh, it's this. So we'll say values. I just literally just did it again. Again, as I noticed it. So now that we have it saved, hit this again. Okay, it's probably rebuilding. I have a slow computer. And there we go. So there's our Zeta ID for our new user, and there's the username. And just to quality check this, we'll go to the database, head to the users, and there you go. There's my first user. Let's try it again. So we'll say my first user. We'll hit enter. There's going to be an error, and that's because we have the username set to be unique. So we can't create more than one of the same person. So we'll say my my second user, hit enter, and there you go. There's a second user in the database. All right, let's go ahead and implement the login route. So I'm going to minimize all of our functions by hitting Control K, Control 0, and we're going to head into main real quick. And let's first, we're going to make login a method of the abstract as well. So we'll just go ahead and save that like so, and let's head down to login now. So inside of the login function, well, actually before we go inside, let's first make this a method of the abstract. There we go. So now we have access to whatever we need from the abstract, such as the database connection. So first thing we want to do is let's go ahead and actually we're going to copy a lot of stuff from register. So we're going to copy out the creds piece. As a matter of fact, we're going to copy basically, yeah, we're going to copy this out, and let's head down here, paste this. So we're going to first define the credentials as they come in from the body. We're going to respond with error if there's an issue with the request. And then down here, we're going to initialize a variable called stored creds. And this is essentially the credentials that are in the database, as well as the Zeta ID. So var Zeta ID, and this is going to be a string. So underneath this, we're going to make a query to the oh my gosh, geez, that was a tragic stutter, to the database. So we'll say error equals app.db.query row, and here we're going to select the Zeta ID, the username, the password, did I spell that right? Yeah. From, and because I'm lazy, I'm just going to copy this because I don't feel like typing escapes right now. I'll paste that there, and then where username equals $1, all right, because that's going to be the first placeholder. And we're going to pass the creds.username to that placeholder, and we're going to scan the results to Zeta ID, and to the stored credentials, the username, stored credentials, and the where is it? And stored creds.password. Cool. So Zeta ID will go here, username will go here, and then password will go here. Cool. So if there's an error, let's we're actually going to copy this, paste that there. So if there's an error, we first want to check if the error is due to the fact that there are no SQL rows, meaning that the thing does not exist. So we're going to actually copy this, and inside of here, we're going to paste it again. But this time, rather than if error equals if error does not equal nil, we'll say if error equals SQL.error no rows, meaning thing not found, right? And then the status code for this will be status unauthorized, like that. And we'll say user not found. And then in here, we'll say status internal server error. Cool. And actually, we're not going to put, so I should explain this. So we're saying status unauthorized because, so this is more of an error handling for us. I should actually say invalid username or password here, because you're not technically supposed to surface the fact that the user is not found when you, well, I don't know if that's true. That's what I understood. Like when the first time I did this years ago, and I just kind of like lived with it since then. But I don't implement user authentication myself if I can avoid it, because you always rather use a third-party service that's more stable than yours and more secure than whatever you could come up with. But yeah, I mean, in this case, you're basically saying like if the user not found, then just say invalid username and password. Cool. So then we'll come down here. So this is assuming that the username was found, right? Now, if the username was found, then we want to compare the password that the user had that had come in through the request with the hash password that's in the database. So we'll say error equals bcrypt compare hash and password, and we will pass in. Sorry, I'm looking for the slice character. So a square brackets byte, so a slice of bytes, and in here we're going to pass in the stored creds.password. So this is the password that we got back from the database, which will be the hash, and then the password itself is going to, I'm just going to copy this, because it is going to be an array of bytes, but this is going to be from the creds that were passed in the request. So we're going to pass the hashed password and compare it to the password that came in from the request. If there's an error, so I'm going to grab this and I'm going to paste it here. So if there's an error, then we want to respond with unauthorized, like this. And we'll say, I don't want to say invalid password because, again, I think, I don't know. I mean, I've seen it done both ways, I think. But for the sake of safety and for the sake of me not getting, like, me not getting sued for giving potentially liable information, yeah, we'll just play them on the safe side and say invalid username or password. So yeah. So now, if this succeeds, then we want to actually generate a token. So this is where we need to create a custom function to generate the token. And the reason we're creating a function is because we're actually going to use this in two places. So I'm just going to write the code for it right now. So we'll say what we're going to be trying to get is a token that's in string format and an error, and we're going to the function is going to be called generate token, and we're about to define it up top. And in generate token, we're going to take in the username as well as the Zeta ID. So now let's go ahead and create this function. So let's see, where should we do this? We'll do it above the register, just for now, and like eventually we can probably move this to like a utils or some like dedicated file. So in here we'll say func generate token. It's going to take in username and Zeta ID, and both of these are going to be of type string. So this is like shorthand. This is instead of me having to do this, because these are both of type string, I can just do this. All right, and it's going to return a string and an error. Notice how I said and. All right, so first thing we're going to do, expiration time. Expiration time. I just realized we probably didn't even import, we probably didn't download the JSON Web Token package yet. So let's go ahead and install that or download that real quick. So we'll say go get, and it's github.com/golang jwt v5. Go ahead and pause and type this in. Cool. So once you get that, at the terminal again, and now we can set our expiration time to time.now, there we go, .now, and we're going to add, and this, like, you can do it however you want. So this is the expiration time for the token. You can do like 5 times time.minutes if you're crazy and you want this thing to expire in 5 minutes. No, sorry, not minutes, minutes. There we go.